I can really recommend being a foster carer for Notts County Council. There's always someone walking the journey alongside you, whether that's other foster carers or social workers. It really helps to provide stability and consistency for children who really need it, and that's really rewarding as a foster carer.
Roger and I have been fostering for 35 years. We do deal with challenges, but to say we've been doing it for 35 years to me proves that it's not impossible. We learn an awful lot from these young people, and even now we're still learning.
As a foster family, we care, we want to make a difference, and we get so much fulfilment from fostering. The satisfaction of making a difference is something that money can't buy. Just seeing the smiles on the children's faces and helping them reach their potential is wonderful.
We work as family workers within the fostering service for Nottinghamshire County Council.
I really enjoy my work. I really enjoy meeting lots of different foster carers.
You know, we get to know the families, we get to know the kids, and we care, basically. It's important as it is to them that the kids are getting the support that they need.
A lot of people said to me they would like to be a foster carer, but there's something stopping them. I had that as well. And we decided just to jump in and do it and see what happened. And for us, it's been the best decision we've ever made.
It's been a fantastic decision, it really has, yes.
Once people start to become a foster carer and take that leap to do it, they'll understand how much it gives back, not just to the child, but how much it empowers you as well.
I'm Leon, I'm a care leaver, and I've been in care since I was 8. I've been with the same parents since, and they're amazing. They are my foster parents, but I do class them as my parents, my mum and dad. All a child wants really from a family is to be supported, loved and cared for, and know they're there because they're wanted. From personal experience, I know the difference it's made for my life.
We always say that we foster as a whole family. It's not just us who are the carers, our children are involved in that. And even now, people express concern about the effect on our birth children of foster caring. I think we need to kind of get past that and dispel that myth, because actually the overall effect on our children, I think, is positive. They're learning new skills, they're gaining empathy, they're interacting with children from different backgrounds. For a long time we didn't make use of support care, and we wanted our child to settle into our placement and not feel pushed out, but it's actually been really helpful for us to start to have support care.
We've known Zoe for a number of years, and it's meant that we got to know her foster child. So for her it's been like coming for a sleepover rather than a feeling she's coming to another family. I got into fostering for Notts County Council, and it was something that I've always wanted to do, but working full time and my husband also working full time, we thought it's not really going to be something we can do now. But after looking at the website, we realised there was this wonderful thing called support care that we were able to offer. It might surprise you, but actually I'm under 30, I don't have any children of my own, and that doesn't stop you from being a foster carer.
I think some people don't go into foster care because they think it's going to be really costly to have another child living in their house, but actually the fostering allowance is generous enough to cover all the costs of having a child living with you.
We have a lot of fun on the weekends when we have foster children in. We get to go to parks, ice skating, children's events, trampolining parks like I Jump.
We get access to the Max card, which is a discount card for foster carers and their children to access different local amenities. Also recently we went on holiday and we were able to use the Max card to get free access to some castles and historical places because it's a national initiative.
We chose to go with Notts County Council because of the support care that was offered and the training. And it's always local to Nottinghamshire. My parents are foster carers for an agency and they found it really difficult to get support care for their child.
My name's Lynn. I am now a support foster carer. We were mainstream carers, but given our ages, we felt that we couldn't commit to children for long term anymore. We just find it really rewarding, the relationships we build up with these young people, and we feel we're perhaps a bit like grandparents to them. With the children coming here for weekends, this enables their mainstream carers to have a break, and this makes things more secure perhaps for the children to continue there. I work with my supervising social worker to sort out the dates. She comes out to see us every month, and it's all very relaxed. I find Robin really easy to speak to. She listens to my concerns, and I value what she is saying to me in return.
The benefits of a supervising social worker are always having someone to contact. There is also emergency duty team that they can contact on a weekend and out of hours. I think the times that it gets difficult is when, you know, she's supported a child for a long time and then they're either moving on out of area or they're moving on because they've reached the age of 18, you know, and she has to say goodbye to that child, so that can be always emotionally draining. Generally it's staying in touch so they know that you do care about them and you are concerned, you know, that the impact that something like that has had on them.
You do feel fully supported. It's like working in a team. We still even now go on training sessions. I almost look forward to those sessions because you meet other foster carers there and it's very interesting. I've always fostered with my husband, who's brilliant, and I feel personally I couldn't do it without him. He's super with the kids, and it's just something we continue to enjoy doing. A lot of our friends feel at the ages we are, we shouldn't be doing it, but it's a way of life for us now.
I'm Mark, I'm a foster carer dad in the family. I'm the fun dad, if you like. I try to be anyway, try to be.
And I'm Amy, a foster carer. So we have 4 children of our own and then we foster younger children into our family. Being a foster carer is a devastating privilege. It's devastating that children have to be in this situation, and yet what a privilege that we are able to help them.
Yeah.
When you foster as a family. I think it's very important that everybody in your house is involved. And even though we have 4 children of our own, we don't find that a challenge, we find that quite an easy thing to do. Daniel particularly, he's older and he sees more and he understands more because he's older, and he feels that it's given him an insight as to when he's older and he has his own children. Whenever a placement ends, we always ask them, do you want to do it again? Would you like another child? And it's always yes. And even though we've had the sadness maybe of a child leaving, and they are sad when a child leaves, the positive that we get out of it, they get to see, as we do, the happiness when a child leaves us, and that inspires them as well to want to do it again and again and again, as well as us.
When a child leaves, it's sad for us, but it's happy for them.
The biggest thing for us has been the support network, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think we would be able to carry on. I think it's a big, big thing to know that there's always someone there if you've ever got problems. And for our children, they really enjoy the events that we attend. We've been quite surprised at actually the amount of events there are.
Barbecues and picnics and
local supports
groups. And Foster's Got Talent. We've been to the Christmas do's and the Sons and Daughters events here today are fantastic for our children. They really enjoy it, and I think it's a lovely thing for them to do.
And it's very empowering for them to know that they're appreciated as a child in a foster family.
We are allocated to new foster carers so that we can give them support and advice before they get their new placement. So we might go out and give them some advice around therapeutic parenting and kind of build up their foster carer toolkit before they begin.
Yeah, and we've got an idea of obviously the child who's being placed with them, so that we can tell them some background about that particular child.
We find that children that have experienced trauma or have attachment needs are more responsive to therapeutic parenting than your average parenting. So that's very much what we encourage our foster carers to do.
Theraplay is obviously a form of therapeutic parenting. A lot of the foster children, their early life experiences of being quite sad, really. They haven't had any compliments. Nobody's ever said that they've got nice eyes. Nobody's said that the hair's nice. So that is something that we always start off to build their self-esteem.
Yeah, there's lots of nurturing activities, so tactile, skin to skin contact, eye contact. We'll offer nurture in positive ways, introduce it slowly, so we might do touch with a feather, maybe feather face painting.
One of the main purposes of therapy is for them to achieve, so we always want them to do really well. And we adapt the games depending on the age and the abilities of the children. When I go out and visit foster parents and explain what therapeutic parenting is, it's as if a light bulb just turns on in the head.
I think because we visit regularly, we go back and get the chance to go over what we talked about last week and see if they've tried it out and if it worked, and like you said, that you've had that light bulb, oh, I tried what you said and what, it worked.
I'm Gemma and this is my husband Paul, and we're both foster carers. I think initially we were a little bit anxious ourselves about going to panel. It sounded quite scary, but it wasn't at all. It was just a really friendly chit chat with a group of people around a table. It was more of a celebration really of us being there and of us, wanting to become foster carers. The County Council offer a fair rate of pay, so we get paid dependent on our level of experience. So after you've done it for a while, then your level of pay will go up based on your experience and level of training that you've done. We've also got a network hub, which is a foster carer support group, and it's just an informal get-together. We feel so valued as a foster carer for Nottinghamshire County Council. Everyone's so caring and wants what's best for you as a family. The matching process is really careful, so they listen to our needs and, they would never think of placing a child that wouldn't fit in our environment. As a foster family, we try and just make it everyday, normal life, try and bring some stability and love to that child that's staying with us and give them experiences that perhaps they've not experienced before. We love going out on day trips together, and for example today we've come pony trekking. Nottinghamshire's a great place to foster because we've got so much on our doorstep, there's so much that we can do. I feel really lucky that we're able to foster here.
I'm Leon, I'm a care leaver. I went into care when I was 8 for reasons of basically not being looked after properly. So I've been in care for 15 years, long time. I was very, very nervous to start with, very quiet. I used to be very, very withdrawn. My foster parents encouraged me to go to my friend's dance group. At first I was a bit and then so much clicked, and now it's a passion and I really can't imagine my life without it. I just live dance now. I started my degree and I've now completed a 3-year degree in contemporary dance practice. So I'm classed as a professional contemporary dancer. It's made me a different person, made me a better person, I think, and it's made me realise what I can do. Without my foster carers and the fostering service, they've made my life go a completely different way of what it would be if I wasn't in care. For my next plans I've got, which is hopefully moving to Beijing to teach English and teach dance and train over there and just travel, they're so supportive. When I told them about it, they said go for it. My parents said that there's always going to be a room if I need to come back for a little bit or if I come back to visit. I class them as my real parents because they've just, everything they've done for me. There's a lot of children out there who need a second chance at life or just need that extra support that if their parents can't give them. Anyone can do it, and if you feel like you want to but you're unsure, as far as I can say, I'd say give it a go, because from personal experience I know the difference it's made for my life.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name's Councillor Eric Kerry. I'm chair of the committee and I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting of the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee, which is being held remotely and broadcast live and recorded for publication, with the majority of the members joining the meeting from their own homes. As well as myself, the other members present in the meeting today are Councillor Stephen Garner, Councillor Reg Adair, Councillor Chris Barnfather, Councillor Sheila Place, Councillor Mike Pringle, Councillor Francis Purdue-Horan, Councillor Paris Imberidis, Councillor Graham Chapman, Councillor Anne Peach, Councillor David Lloyd, Councillor Gordon Moore, Mr Chris King and Mr Alan Woodward. I hope I've got your name right, Alan. And also we have a substitute, and that is Councillor...
We have Councillor Madden, who's replacing Councillor Hollis, Chair.
Okay, well, I would have come to that, I guess, and I do apologies. But so we also have the following officers present today. The Service Director for Finance, Infrastructure and Improvement is Mr Nigel Stevenson. The Group Manager for Business Services Centre and Employee Services Centre is Sarah Stevenson. Group Manager of Finance Strategy and Compliance is Keith Pelfreman. Pensions Team Manager is John Clues. We have the Senior Finance Business Partner, Tamsin Rabbits, and Investments Officer, Kieran Guilfoyle, and the Clerk to the meeting is Mr Peter Barker. Today's meeting will be held in line with the new requirements of the Coronavirus Act 2020. Please do bear with us if we experience any technical issues. If we do lose any members from the call temporarily, then officers will seek to assist in getting them reconnected as soon as possible, hopefully without the need to halt proceedings. Officers will inform the meeting if they are unable to rectify the problem and if we need the meeting to be paused or adjourned temporarily. Could I ask that all those at the meeting please mute their microphones unless they are speaking? For item 8, the climate risk report, members will have also received an exec appendix. As well as having the public debate, I've agreed to add an urgent item to the agenda to invite the committee to exclude the public to give members the opportunity to discuss the contents in a closed session, in case members have any issues they would like to raise in connection with the exempt appendix. It may well be that when we get to that item there will be nothing to discuss, but I will ask that members do be careful not to mention stuff in the main report item that's in the exempt item that should not be discussed. So,
Chair, sorry to interrupt. I just noticed that Councillor Webster has his hand up.
Okay. I don't see that on my screen. Councillor Webster, would you like to speak?
Just to announce that I am in the meeting because you didn't read my name out.
So sorry.
I'm not able to stay for the whole meeting.
Yeah.
Apologies, but I'm
Okay, Sam.
Thank you.
We hadn't heard from you, but thank you very much. That's great. Good to see you. Cheers. So Councillor Sam Webster is also in the meeting. Thank you. Okay, so no other questions. We'll move on formally to the first item, which is the agenda item number 1, pages 3 to 8, which is the minutes of the last meeting held on the 10th of September 2020. I'll ask the committee if the minutes can be agreed, please. Everybody okay with that? I see some hands raised. Steve Garner's hands raised. Yes, okay. If you want to show your video and show your hands raised, that's fine, as long as you keep mute and then so unable to see it. So, anybody against? No, there aren't. Okay, thank you. The minutes are approved. I'll sign those later. Item number 2 is apologies for absence. So, can I ask the committee clerk if there are any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've had apologies from Councillor Simbiridis and from Mr Terry Needham, and as mentioned before, Councillor Madden replaces Councillor Hollis for this meeting only. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other apologies that anybody's aware of? No. Okay, thank you very much. Item number 3 is declarations of interest. So do Section A, do any members of or officers present have any disclosable pecuniary interest to declare? I see no hands. And B, do any members or officers present have any private interest, either pecuniary or non-pecuniary, to declare? No, that's a no. Okay, so we now move on to the first substantive item, which is item number 4 on the agenda, pages 9 to 20, which is proxy voting. May I invite Kieran Guilfoyle to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Let me just bring up the report on my screen. This is the usual proxy voting report that comes to every pension fund committee with an update showing the votes that have been cast on our equity shares in the last quarter. Just to let members know that the report on this is available on the website, and in addition, in this report, there's just a reminder. Well, maybe some members haven't even seen this before, but the voting principles that the equity shares are voted in line with are shown in this report. There's an attachment showing the LGPS Central's voting principles, and they are gathered under 5 headings. So they vote according to issues relating to boards with a long-term view, boards with a transparent audit function, boards that take shareholder rights seriously, issues relating to fair remuneration, and obviously a miscellaneous one which gathers together everything else. And that document can also be found on the fund's website. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kieran. Thank you very much for your report. Before I open this up discussion, can I formally move the recommendations on page 10 of the agenda pack? And do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that and reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. So I now open the floor to debate. Do any members wish to comment? Please raise your hands on the screen, please. No? Okay. So do any so we now then move to the vote. Would members indicate their approval of the report, please? In the usual way, hands or raise hands. Okay. I think that's carried, Mr. Barker.
Yes, yes. Just double check. No one's voting against or abstaining.
Yes. Would I just ask if anybody wants to vote against? No. Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very, very much. We now move on pages 21 to 26, item number 5, which is the LAPFF LAP business meeting. And again, Kieran Guilfoyle, please would you introduce the report?
Thank you again, Chair. Again, this is the routine report that comes to, well, normally comes to every pension fund committee. There's been a bit of a lull this year because of the coronavirus issues. So this report covers 3 LAP business meetings from January this year, which was a physical meeting in London, and 2 Zoom meetings in April and July. The issues that the salient issues rather that this report highlights. So first of all, I don't know if members recall in a previous LAP business meeting report, I think the report referred to a survey that was being undertaken by LAP on climate risk, asking the different pension funds that are members of LAP about their attitudes towards it. Well, in the January meeting, the LAP did summarise the findings from that survey, and they said that most pension funds recognise climate risk as an important issue in their investment strategies, but are not necessarily setting targets as a result. This was kind of left open, really, and that this is an ongoing issue with LAP on how climate risk can be approached best by pension fund committees that are setting their investment strategies, because it's not the case that disinvestment is necessarily the best way of approaching that matter. Later in the year, during the Zoom meetings, one issue arose to do with the Paris Agreement and the limitations on carbon emissions, and there seems to be like 2 issues to consider in relation to this, or for LAPF to consider in relation to this. One is reduction of carbon emissions, and one is the offsetting of carbon emissions with carbon capture strategies. And LAPF now seems to be taking the view that carbon capture strategies and carbon capture technology, or if you can call planting a tree technology, but there are other more sophisticated ways I'm given to understand. This matter is harder to quantify, they say, and it's often boils down to a commitment by a company to undertake carbon capture in the future, and not necessarily to reduce the carbon they're producing in the present. So I think LAPF is shifting its emphasis now towards reduction of carbon emissions in the if you like, in the run up to meeting the Paris Agreement targets, and is putting less emphasis on the development of carbon capture technologies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kieran. Very interesting. I think obviously there are other items on the agenda that shows that the work this pension fund is doing in terms of climate risk. So I think we can discuss that in more detail later on in the meeting, I would hope. Okay, I'll formally move the recommendation on page 22. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that and reserve the right.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll now open up the floor for debate. Do any members wish to comment, please? Please indicate in the new way. Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so I'll move the vote.
Sorry, Chair. I think
Councillor Pringle. Sorry, you're a late hand, so please take the floor, Mike.
I was early, but you missed me, Eric. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't see a hand on my screen, sir. I didn't see a hand on my screen.
Well, I just think that we should recognise Kieran's efforts again on providing the report, and we have been conscious of LAPF's attention to detail on climate change, and it was really good to hear that this has been discussed at that level, where our investment and discussions are taking place. So I welcome that. I'll take on board that. We will talk about it later on, but I think Kieran's efforts should be recognised as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mike. I'm sure the committee also would like to thank Kieran for his work. Any other comments, questions, please? I don't think I can see anybody else, so unless anybody, you can shout out if you like, if you can't do the hand. No? Okay, so we'll now move to the vote. Can members indicate their approval of the report, please? Okay. I believe that's all those. Can I just ask, just in case, are there any abstentions or votes against, please? Please speak out. No. So thank you. That's carried. We now move. Thank you, Kieran. We now move on to item number 6, which is pages 27 to 32. It's the LAPF Strategic Investment Forum. So may I please invite Tamsin Rabbits to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. As members will be aware, it has been a difficult year for conferences and training events. The Local Authority Pension Fund Strategic Investment Forum, which was originally organised for early July, was first postponed and then run as a virtual event in late August. Nottinghamshire attended this event for the first time last year, and it was excellent. Although much of the conference experience is lost with a virtual event, the organisers did an excellent job of retaining what they could and arranged an interesting programme of relevant investment topics, as you can see from the report. I would recommend the conference to members in future years as either a physical or a virtual event. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tamsin. I'll formally move the recommendation on page 31. So do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to comment that they are excellent for forums, conferences, whatever you like to call them. The detail is immense. They are hard work. But during this COVID period, you can come in and out virtually into those meetings, so it's much easier to just nip in and out. If members want to do that, I'm sure we've passed on links before. We can do that again, and you can take a choice of which bit you want to see, maybe, and just be included. Tamsin, is that okay? Are we able to do that?
It does vary from conference to conference exactly who is able to register, and sometimes the places are limited for each local authority. But I will continue as we hear about the next one. I will keep members informed if there's an opportunity for more people to attend than those that are already allocated.
Yeah, I mean, there has been one or two other meetings, virtual meetings, that have taken place where that's happened, I think. So
yes.
Okay, I'll open up to the floor for debate, please. Do any members wish to comment or have any questions? Is that Mike? Was that your hand raised?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Sorry, I couldn't find my hand. It's moved again, hasn't it?
No problem.
I can find it. Just to follow on from the recommendations, and I think it is important that we do keep up to date. So the first part of the recommendations is without question something that I think we need to do. And again, I think you've discussed the part 2 of the recommendations to consider any other actions, and if we could have more membership or a link shared or somehow some report from there, overall report from there, that's specific to us, that would be of help as well. So thank you, Tamsin.
Thank you, Mike. I mean, another comment possibly then. I mean, once we get to know the agenda, it is possible for us to send the agenda to members, and if they wish, officers or other councillors going to the forum to specifically respond on those points on the agenda. There might be a specific item that people want to have more information on. I don't know whether that's possible, Tamsin.
Are you talking about the LAPS business meetings now rather than the conference?
Well, no, anything. So if there's going to be a special half day on a certain topic, like hedging or something like that, that might be useful. Maybe we could, if members are interested, we could spend a bit more, send a bit more detail on that item.
I'll make sure members are kept informed about opportunities for training.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, please? No. Okay. So I'll now move to the vote. So can members indicate their approval of the report, please, of the recommendation? Okay. I just need to check that there are no abstentions or votes against. And don't see any movement or hands, so I'll take that as a no. So thank you. The report is carried, Tamsin. Thank you. We move now on to item number 7, pages 33 to 94, and that's the revision of fund strategies. So may I ask Tamsin again, that's your report, would you please introduce it?
Thank you, Chair. Fund strategies would have been reviewed at the July meeting, but this did not take place. Strategies must be reviewed at least every 3 years, but as members last undertook a review in spring 2019, we're still well within this period. Nottinghamshire's approach of reviewing pension fund strategies on an approximately annual basis means that for most reviews, amendments are relatively minor. The strategies being reviewed today are the funding strategy statement, the investment strategy statement, the risk management strategy and risk register, and the governance compliance statement. These are all attached as appendices to the report, and I'll highlight the key changes in each of these. The funding strategy statement, which is based on drafting from the actuary, has been updated to reflect the results of the triennial valuation. It also reflects a number of recent regulatory changes, including a strategy for exit credits. Members will be aware of the number of recent announcements for which guidance was awaited at the date of publishing these papers. Following discussions with the actuary, these newest changes will be reflected in the funding strategy statement at the next review. The investment strategy statement reflects changes which have previously been discussed at committee, principally the changes to asset allocation agreed early this year and the change in the proxy voting service. The risk management strategy and risk register have been carefully reviewed by both the pensions manager and the investments team to ensure all risks are assessed and recorded. As a result of these discussions, 3 new risks have been added to the risk register. These relate to the risk of failures by scheme employers, GDPR-related risk, and the financial risk of climate change, which is now explicitly included, having previously been implicitly reflected within investment risk. Taking into account the Council's mitigating controls and actions, these risks are each rated medium. Officers continually assess, manage and monitor risks to the pension fund. When the country went into lockdown in March, the pensions manager and myself considered the new risks arising. The additional risks pertinent to the pandemic are identified on what we hope is a temporary addition to the risk register during the course of the pandemic. There were no significant changes required to the governance compliance statement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tamsin, for that comprehensive report. And I need to move the recommendations which are on page 34 of the report. May I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that and reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. So I'll now open up the floor for debate. And may I say, I mean, it's a rather long report. If there are any specifics you have on, could you mention the page number of the report? So down the bottom, it'll say something like page 53 of 178, just to help us understand where the bit you're commenting on, please. So does anybody wish to comment? Have any questions? I don't see any. Councillor Chapman. Sorry, yes, I see your hand. Please, Graham.
Yeah,
please.
okay,
Yeah.
Right, thanks. I've got 3 points really. I mean, it says on item 5, and this is probably my confusion. The main update relates to changes in asset allocation, which we discussed in the January Working Party. Presumably, what we're talking about in terms of asset allocation is the balance between, say, equity, bonds, infrastructure, etc. Yeah. I don't recall the January Working Party. I may even have missed it, but I'm sure there was a discussion there. But what I've been particularly interested in is the sort of granulation, the detail below, say, in equity, having a discussion about the balance between, say, investment in the UK, investment in Japan or whatever, and the same about, say, property. As you probably know, one thing I've been very keen to try and pursue is the degree to which we might want to start moving into the housing market. I know there's movement in that direction. I know that, so it's been quite positive, but I'd like to know a bit more in detail how we're getting on in that, with that policy, or if indeed it is a policy. And another area, for example, I'm very supportive of our moves towards infrastructure investment. But it would be very nice to have a much more detailed discussion about what goes on below the sort of the categories of equity and property, etc. What opportunities will there be for that? And I'm sure there are opportunities, but I just don't know when they're going to be. That's number one. Number two is very specific, and it's to do with the yellow report, which is Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Strategy Statement, and it's page 7. Of 15, and it's paragraph 2, and it's to do with McLeod. And there is a sentence at the end that I would like some explanation on, and it says, as the remedy is still to be agreed, the cost cannot be calculated with certainty. However, the fund actually expects it is likely to be less than the impact of reducing the discount rate assumption by 0.1%. Now, I just want an interpretation of that. Does that mean that we will be reducing somebody will be reducing the discount rate? And if so, or are we going to reduce the discount rate in order to compensate for the, for the additional cost, so there'll be no impact on the contributions? I just want to know what impact on contributions that's likely to have. And my third point is actually to do with the proxy voting. I did take the trouble to go and look at our proxy voting. I thought I'd mention it on here rather than, and I've got to say I was really impressed with the number of times we've objected to stuff, and because I thought we would be, would be nothing but compliance, but there seems to be a lot of objection, and what the figures we get don't tell us what the objections were about particularly. So I'd be quite interested to delve a bit more into that, because when it comes to a later report to do with the climate change, I think it's the voting element. I'll raise it on that report. I don't think given enough enough emphasis our capacity to vote. So I'd like to know a bit more about how Hermes are voting and what are the issues, what are the specific issues they seem to be voting against. But it is very reassuring that they are taking such an active role, using the vote properly. Thank you. 3 points.
Okay, thank you, Graham. So we do discuss all the elements you talk about, and we discussed the asset allocations at working groups, or that we get regular reports. But there is a lot of data behind that, obviously, which we do share at different stages. So the item about voting, we do get regular reports on voting. But again, if you need more detail, I'm sure officers will be very, very happy to let you know. So Tamsin, would you like to respond to those questions, please?
Yeah, I hope I'll manage to pick up most of the points, and I suspect William might like to come in on asset allocation when we get there. Those detailed discussions do happen at a working party every year, so the next one that goes into those detailed discussions is likely to be around about January. But Graham, I can send you the report from the last January's if you want to see some of the detail underneath.
Really great. Yeah. But that'll tee me up for January. I'll definitely be there. Okay.
Absolutely. It's always a good meeting. I would also, you mentioned investment in property and housing, and this will be mentioned later in the meeting, but we're planning a training event in November, which will specifically look at the alternative property elements, so not our core mandate, but the other bits, which does include some housing investments. Then the McLeod estimate. What happened before the judgment was that the actuaries estimated how much impact they thought that would have, and decided basically it was pretty minimal. So we now know what we're trying to achieve, but there's going to be a lot of data to analyse and a lot of cases to review, and I'm sure John will speak some more about that to give some more detail. But the actuaries' assessment at the moment is that their original estimate was broadly in line with what the outcome's likely to be.
Sorry, could I just interrupt on that? Does that mean that we are likely to absorb the cost of that, or are we going to be passing it on to our clients?
Where the cost, to the best of our knowledge, given the data we've got, the cost of implementing that should be reflected in the last valuation. So there shouldn't be anything, they're not anticipating anything additional.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Okay, thank you, Tamsin. Do we have any other questions, comments, please? William, Mr. Bourne, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I was just going to add a little bit to what Tamsin said about asset allocation. I was going to make the same generous offer to Graham to pass on the paper, but if Tamsin's doing, I won't. When we looked at it, it wasn't so much about whether to invest in the US, Japan, the UK. It was more what the pension fund needs going forward, growth to pay pensions, income just to make sure that the cash, so income to, in case there's a shortfall between contribution and payments. Inflation, and I do think that given what's happened over the last 6 months, inflation is a big long-term issue for the fund. And finally, for protection, when when the brown stuff hits the fan, that we got something there kind of which is stable and an anchor for the fund. So it's more looking at the beneath the high-level asset allocation on that kind of metric rather than how much do we have in Japan. We tend to leave that to managers.
Okay, Mr. Clues would like to comment too.
On mute.
John, you're on mute.
I beg your pardon, Chair. It was just a point that Councillor Chapman raised about McLeod, just from the admin side. There's clearly quite a lot of work to do on McLeod, and there will be I won't say significant changes to a number of people's pensions, but there will be some increases to pensions of individuals once we do various calculations and review of data. But as Tamsin said, the likelihood is that it's been picked up as part of the valuation, and the changes to people's pensions are likely to be minimal. I say likely, we don't know that until we've done the work. So there is a project in place, and we will bring further further information to committee once we've started that project properly.
Thank you, Mr. Clues. I mean, we did actually have a report from Mr. Clues at the September the 10th meeting, which outlined pretty much what is just said. So we expect that further report in a few months' time. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. If anybody wants to speak, if they have and I can't see it. No. Okay. So we'll now move to the vote. This is a significant decision of those strategies. I will ask the clerk to read out alphabetically the names of those members who are entitled to vote in order for them to confirm whether they're voting for or against the recommendations or abstaining. The votes today will not be recorded in the minutes of the meeting unless 2 or more members request it. This is in line with the usual recorded vote arrangement. So, Mr. Barker, would you please read out the names?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adair. Councillor Adair, you're muted. Okay, I'll come back to Councillor Adair just in case he's away from his desk. Councillor Barnfather.
For.
Councillor Garner.
For.
Councillor Kerry.
For.
Councillor Madden.
For.
Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Pringle.
For.
Councillor Purdue-Horan.
For.
And Councillor Adair, are you with us? That's a majority has carried that without.
Okay,
Councillor
so
Adair.
Councillor Adair's vote wouldn't change the result of the vote, so that's carried. Okay, let's move on now to item number 8 on the agenda, pages 95 to 102, and the appendix, climate risk analysis. So can I ask Tamsin to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This climate risk report has been issued to the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund and has been presented to members of the Nottinghamshire Pension Fund Committee by LGPS Central at a working party meeting, which was a training session to communicate the recommendations of the climate risk report and enable members to appreciate the challenge in obtaining reliable data for these calculations and the complexity of modelling these issues. Broadly, the report is supportive of the fund's current investment strategy in that it demonstrates this 2 degrees C scenario is of benefit to the pension fund financially, which means that the fund's financial interests are aligned with global environmental interests. It shows that the March 19 equity holdings were already below the market cap benchmark in terms of carbon footprint and weight of fossil fuel reserves, which indicates that the fund has been considering and managing climate risks. And it shows that as the fund progresses towards the long-term strategic asset allocation, these positions will further improve. Members should be reassured of these signs that they are discharging their responsibilities appropriately. Members are reminded that the report cannot be published due to the commercial confidentiality of supplier intellectual property, so the report is attached as an exempt appendix. As can be seen from the proposed action plan, the key elements of the report will be published as part of our Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures report. The report provided a number of recommendations to Nottinghamshire Pension Fund for the committee's consideration. As a result of these, an action plan is presented in paragraph 9. This has been shared with LGPS Central. While this work is ongoing, the Pension Fund will continue to implement its long-term strategic asset allocation. This includes an increasing allocation to infrastructure investments, a significant proportion of which are in clean energy, and a gradual reduction in equity investments. Within our equity investments, we are looking at a number of low carbon and sustainable funds. Over time, our exposure to fossil fuels will reduce as a result of these asset allocation and diversification decisions. The pension fund will continue to monitor and manage all financially material risks to which it is exposed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tamsin. I must say that the training, the working group we had was really good stuff. It massive detail in there, lots of very interesting stuff. But and I think it's very pleasing to find that we are doing well in terms of our reaction to climate risk, and we will always look to do more. So I think I'll just leave that comment. I'm sure lots of people will want to speak, so I'll now open that up. I'll formally move the recommendations on page 100. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that and reserve the right to speak.
Okay, so I'll now open up the floor to debate. So, Councillor Chapman, I think you were saying you were going to come in on this. Do you want to come first? You're mute, Graham.
I've really got to welcome this because we've now got an action plan and it's got dates on it. And so it gives a structure rather than a lot of nice homilies about saving the planet. So we've got something really substantial and a sense of direction. So I can do nothing but welcome this. And it also looks sort of gradualist, but very sensible and fairly determined. I've only got one point to make, and it is the degree to which we can use our clout to make proper changes. There are lots of mechanisms in here, potentially, but the one thing I just thought might not have been covered sufficiently was just going back to our voting as shareholders. And I'm wondering whether, I may have missed it because there's a lot of paperwork there, but whether we shouldn't be more explicit about our voting powers to promote response to climate change, and whether that shouldn't be in the list of actions. But I may have missed it, so I stand to be corrected.
Tamsin, would you like to respond to Councillor Chapman, please?
Thank you. Yes, it probably isn't explicitly mentioned, but that would form part of the annual stewardship plan, which is part of the action plan.
Right. Could I ask that it should be explicitly mentioned?
If members are happy with that, I'm certainly happy with it.
Yeah, because it just reinforces it. It would add the icing on the cake. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody? Councillor Pringle, I think you're next.
Thanks, Chairman. And look, this report is excellent. After the information that we had from Michael from Central, producing this was a huge step forward for me understanding this. But I was left completely flat at paragraph 10, and perhaps some clarity around that. I'd appreciate that on page 99, where it says the exact timing will be dependent on resources. Now, if resources are the availability to quantify the options, then surely we should have that in place to drive forward the proposals that we've put here within this paper. And if we haven't got the resources, then does that put a cloud over the effort that's gone into these papers? Because are we going to be able to do it or not? I don't want to be negative because, as I say, I was really, this report sort of ticked a lot of boxes that we were looking at over a period of time to move forward climate change decisions. But I do want clarity on the resource aspect and the dynamic drive with that, understanding fiducial duties. But there should be a dynamic drive within this report that we should be seeing from me.
Can I just come in before Tamsin replies? I mean, I think the reasons for them not being specifically included are in the report, and some of it is that we don't really the data really doesn't enable us to move forward in faster than what we're doing. In terms of resources, yes, we can discuss this, and you know, we can try and get things done as soon as we can. But it's about prioritising, and I think the way we've prioritised it is the best way forward in these circumstances. Tamsin, would you like to respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Pringle. I'm hoping that resource limitations won't be an issue. They shouldn't be an issue. I think what we've set is a deliverable plan. The reason I'm slightly cautious about it is a lot of it is dependent on me, and a lot of it is particularly dependent on support from Central. Yeah. And as you're aware, they've just lost Michael Marshall, although they're currently recruiting a replacement. If they do end up understaffed for any length of time, that could potentially cause us to miss some of the deadlines in the plan. But it's not something I'm anticipating. I guess it's more a risk that I'm raising.
Can I just before you come back, Mike? We're owners of LGPS Central. We have a joint committee, all those things, so we can push for this. So it's not absolutely. We're just not leaving it.
Oh no.
Let LGPS Central not continue the quality of service that we've had. So I think it's very important to get that message over. Yeah. So, Tamsin, just like
LGPS Central are very aware of how important the Responsible Investment Service is to all of the partner funds. However, with the best will in the world, sometimes you can't wave a magic wand and recruit the people you want, or people are sick or they leave. So I think it's just that things aren't always can't always be controlled. But I think we've set a reasonable plan with reasonable timescales, and we should be able to deliver.
Do you want to come back, Mike?
Yeah, just to say again, I applaud the way it's set out. I absolutely do. I fully support it. My concern was that did Section 10 need to be in, because I'm sure if there was a delay, you would report back to us. And what I'm going to ask now is if there's an obvious delay, that we get to know whether we've got a meeting or not, but we're aware of that delay prior as soon as we possibly can. You know what I'm saying. I just didn't want this to be, after all this hard work and the questions that you guys have been under fire for and the things that we've said, not to see it drive forward. As I said last meeting, the fact that we are driving it forward doesn't mean that we can't drive it forward faster. This sort of gave us a slow down acceptance, which I didn't want, and I didn't think it justified the paper as it was written, to be quite honest. So, look, we will be supporting the paper. Please, if there is going to be I mean, Michael was brilliant. We've got to recognise Michael in delivering that working party. It was incredible to get through them papers and make them understandable as it did. Was fantastic from our point of view, and to put something together that we can work for. Let's do it. That's important. Let's do it, and let's move forward. And you're right, Eric. We do own LGPS Central, and we should be driving it forward. So if they're not finding somebody better than Michael, you need to drive it forward and make sure they do get somebody better. Thank you.
Thank you for that pressure, Mike. Thank you. I've got Councillor Anne Peach, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I found that session on analysis of the impact of climate change actually fascinating, and it was really good. And it really quantified the risk and the impact of climate change that is possible on investments that we're making in the pension fund. And it was a wonderful session. I have to say it was marvellous. But the other thing is that is not actually included in the plan, whether it should be, but is how often are we going to review the plan that's come out and monitor the deadlines and what's happening with it? Thanks.
Tamsin, I think the answer's a big yes, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. The plan is that if this is approved, these all get built into the committee work plan.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Chapman, did you want to come back in?
Yes, please. Just two further points. One that I missed in the first round, and I apologise. It is Anne's point. We are saying we'll report, I think it's at least once a year. I think at the beginning, as we're winding it up, 6 monthly would be better, Chair, if you'd think about that. And my second point is, are we going to do a news release on this? We're going to communicate, because it is, I think it is a step change. It is positive. We've got a plan, right? We're moving in that direction. And given the, well, some of the hostilities we've had to face over the last few months, when people thought we weren't doing anything, I think it's quite important that we get it on the web, our respective council websites, and we do a news release about it.
Yes, Councillor Chapman Graham, absolutely. But I think we needed to bring this to the committee. We need the committee to consider it, and if the committee approves it and are happy with it, we will absolutely need to do good comms on this to show people what we've been doing, not what we've just done, but what we've been doing, because it reflects the work we've already done. So thank you very much for that. Any other comments or questions, please?
I have the point about 6 months.
Yeah, Tamsin, I think we're happy with having a more regular 6-month review. Thank you. Okay, so we've had the debate. Do any members have any more questions? Graham, your thing's still up. Your hand's still up. No? Okay. Okay. I'll now move to the vote, and again I'll ask the clerk to read out alphabetically the names of those members who are entitled to vote in order for them to confirm whether they're voting for or against the recommendations or abstaining. As before, the votes today will not be recorded in the minutes of the meeting unless 2 or more members request it. This is in line with the usual recorded vote arrangements.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adair?
For.
Councillor Barnfather?
For.
Councillor Garner?
For.
Councillor Kerry?
For.
Councillor Madden?
For.
Councillor Place?
For.
Councillor Pringle?
For.
Councillor Purdue-Horan?
For.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we now move to, I added an item at the start, the exclusion of the public.
We've got the work programme next.
Oh, sorry, yes,
sorry.
Apologies, too quickly. Item number 9, the work programme on pages 103 to 108. Can I ask Tamsin to introduce the item, please?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. In the appendix, you can see the work programme for the rest of the committee meetings of the current cycle. As raised at the previous meeting, the auditors have been delayed by external factors with their audit work. As a result, the AGM has been further deferred to January. This change has been published on the Pension Fund website to inform members and employers. As we have used today's meeting, which would have been the AGM, for usual committee business, this has effectively replaced the November meeting. As this date is already in everyone's diaries, it is proposed that this time is used for our autumn property training session. The action plan approved, the climate risk action plan approved previously, will add a number of additional reports into the work programme, and these will be incorporated, plus the additional 6 monthly reviews, progress reviews. And the committee is asked to identify any additional reports required. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tamsin. I formally move the recommendation on page 104. Do I have a seconder, please?
And I'll second that and reserve the right.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. Do any members have any questions or comments, please, about the work programme, taking on board the extra stuff we've discussed previously that we're going to include? I don't see any. So can members indicate with a raised hand or the hand on the screen their approval of the work programme, please? And just for clarity, are there any votes against or abstentions? No, that's carried. Thank you very, very much. I did say at the start, do any members want to discuss some of the further detail? I know we all had the training, most of us had the training. Anybody wish to discuss the appendix on climate risk? If we don't, then I don't need to do the exclusion of the public. I see no raised hands. Is that okay?
I think procedurally, we do need to exclude the public, Eric.
Okay.
Sorry,
Right.
we do need to move that.
Okay, so item number 10 then is exclusion of the public. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I'd like to give members the opportunity to discuss the contents of Appendix B to the Climate Risk Analysis Report. So the committee will be invited to resolve that the public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting on the grounds that discussions are likely to involve disclosure of exempt information described in Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, and the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information, and that the independent advisor, Mr. William Bourne, remains in the meeting. Do I have a seconder, please? No.
I'll second that and reserve the right.
Thank you very much. Can members again indicate their approval of the recommendation to exclude the public, please? Okay. And just for completion, are there any abstentions or votes against? I think not. I think everybody was in favour. Okay, so thank you very much. We'll move to the excluded items.
Yep.
And
can we just ask colleagues in IT to cease the YouTube broadcast, please?